Hey guys, this is miicrow. I wanted to talk about Aang in a little bit more depth. For those of you who don't know what Aang is, this is a named artifact amulet that can be obtained from the PvP rewards track. You need to be above, I believe, level 50 to get this, and it will be a random drop on that third part of the rewards track itself. Aang is I would consider it to be the most game-changing artifact to be printed so far. Probably the most game-changing weapon as a whole, slash armor, slash whatever in New World since New World has come out. It's not really understating it to saying it transforms how the game operates, and seems to be a must-have slash soft requirement for a lot of content within the game, and I think it's somewhat concerning, but I want to go through today why Aang is so good and how it's actually better than we originally thought it was. So if you look at Aang's description here, incoming heals are going to be 50% stronger, and your consumes and outgoing heals are going to be 50% weaker. This seems like relatively balanced. The idea is if you are being healed a lot and you're the source of a lot of healing, Aang is going to allow you to have that kind of resource heavy play style, but in turn for that, you're not going to be able to heal yourself as much. In reality, this is a little bit misconceiving in terms of the math. This incoming heals effect will apply to everything multiplicatively, in a way that no other effect applies. So if you look at Divine, for example, it says 10% health from all incoming healing effects, like you get 10% increased. This center of attention thing will make that Divine actually get more value with other heal effects because it stacks in a multiplicative manner. So instead of actually just being like a flat 50 uh, plus 10, which is like what you would think that bonus would be, and you get to 60 there, it's actually like if we go back to like the 1 point, so the numbers don't get really big, like 1.5 times 1.1, you get this like extra of 5% heal effect from your divine by just running Aang, and that will apply to every other effect like that. So you take that divine effect right there. So say you have that like 1.1 that you were, and you were to add a sacred to that, right? A sacred would be an addition of half a point. You multiply this by 1.5, and all of a sudden we're at 2.4 when this should be at 1.9. So we're getting an increase of approximately 25% HP by just, or heals by just running Aang, and that's where this artifact starts to get a little bit funny. In terms of like what perk you should probably put on the last slot for this, stamina recovery I think is the go-to because stamina recovery when it procs will give you stamina. Stamina you could turn into dodges. Dodges make you immune when you're using them, which will buy you time, and time will provide you with more HP because you'll be getting healed. So I think stamina recovery overall makes the most sense. But typically with an amulet, you are going health, stamina recovery, and some sort of meta related ward perk. So Void Ward would be a very common one early on right now because the Great Axe seems like it's very strong. Void damage in general seems pretty prevalent. That being said, you're not going to be able to do that because Divine is locked in, so you have to make that decision. Do you go for that meta resistance or stamina recovery? I would argue stamina recovery is a little bit better with this. Uh, the strength of Aang right now, as we kind of talked about earlier, is if you're the center of attention for heals, this will always be good. Even if they nerf this in the future, that's the intention behind the design of the artifact is if you are the center of heals, you will be getting healed more with Aang. But if you are someone who is less heal intensive, slash you don't get healed very often, Aang should make you overall less tanky. There is some interactions that kind of make this not the case. For example, if you run Healthy Toast itself is not a consume. You use a consume to proc Healthy Toast, and that proc of that perk of Healthy Toast is affected by this 50% stronger, even though you're popping a consume to trigger an effect which will get boosted. So what this actually means from a practical standpoint is your health cooldown, or like your health pot, is on a basically a 30-second cooldown. Your mana pot is on a 10-second cooldown. Your mana pot is going to be able to heal you more than a typical health pot would with Aang. So Aang instantly becomes very good for builds that are trying to play solo, which doesn't make a lot of sense. And I think this perk is something that the devs should probably be looking at like kind of changing how that interaction works as a whole in order to balance Aang. In terms of going over some of the mechanics of Aang itself, if we go to New World, uh, buddy here, which is like pretty helpful for actually looking up what the perks do, and we go to Aang with center of attention, you could see that the heal scaling value multiplier is decreased by 0.5 and consub heal mod is decreased by 0.5. I want to talk about this heal scaling value multiplier. We've already talked about how your incoming heals are going to be boosted, but this actually doesn't affect your outgoing heals as much as it says it is. So it says on here for Aang that your outgoing heals are going to be 50% weaker. In reality, that's not. It is true that they're going to be weaker, but it's not 50%. It's closer to probably 30% weaker, but you're going to have this multiplicative bonus added on top of that if you're getting healed by another effect. So there's this weird circumstance where people are actually running Aang on healer, which is kind of designed to not be run on healer if you try to like look at it from like a thematics perspective. Like, hey, all your outgoing healer is going to be 50% weaker. It's like kind of screaming, healers don't run me. I am not going to help you. It actually turns out to be helping healers, and there is a company in EU that some of you guys may know about called Parabellum, who's considered to be the best European company in the game right now, whose healers are experimenting with trying Aang, for example, because it's going to allow them to receive more healing and just be passively alive more without much of a detriment because everyone else is running Aang. So we've kind of reached Aangception levels, so to speak, where it's so good that everyone's running it, and there's not much of a drawback. And the reason why there's not much of a drawback is because his incoming heal boost is 50% stronger. That's actually multiplicative. And like to kind of shout out to Octavia and XR for helping me like kind of make sense of this because this is kind of confusing. This is Octavia's like data that he took. So 50 focus, you're getting 1.1 like increase to health, which is what it should be. With Aang, it's at 1.65, which you talked about from a divine effect, and then with the divine and 50 focus, you're getting up to 1.8, right? So that healing is just like very boosted, and that's what makes Aang super strong from a mechanical perspective. This will also affect things like lifesteal. It'll affect shirking heals. It's just like kind of just a powerhouse of an artifact, and there's not really much of a reason to run it. One example is if you're in a healing tomb, which would normally, so like to go through an example here, if you're running healing tomb, your base HP right now is 8,048, I believe, or it's 8,024. I think it's 8,024 actually. But it's around that mark. And if you're going to heal normally by 32% of that for your max HP, that would be a 2.5k heal. But with Aang, if you are playing in the Sacred, for example, and you have 50 focus and you have Divine, this would get multiplied by 1.7, and then that value there would get multiplied by 1.5, and it'd be healing for about 6,000 HP off of something that was originally healing for about well, less than half of that. And that's where Aang starts to get really crazy, is because of this multiplicative scaling, you're seeing numbers that have not really been seen before, where people are getting single targeted healed for values that are like above 12 to 15k. Like it is absolutely like kind of game breaking because of this multiplicative value. And I think if AGS wants to fix this, they need to not make this a flat value, but instead make it add like it to that bucket like Divine does. Otherwise, Aang just kind of gets out of control very quickly, and it just becomes must have. Like even if they nerf this value to be like say it's 30%, you're still multiplicatively scaling every single heal that's incoming to you by 30%. So it's still going to be like very good without much of a detriment, and that's the problem with Aang as a whole right now, is because of this multiplicative kind of math that is coming up from it, that you can be evidenced by data that was taken, that it just does not seem like a very fair artifact. Let me know what you guys think about this artifact. It seems like to me that from every single game mode, this is kind of a must-have. From PvE, it's insane for every single thing that you could run. Maybe not for healer, but that's like the only one that's kind of questionable right now. And even then, people are experimenting with running this on healer. So overall, very solid artifact. If you don't have it, I would recommend trying to get it from the PvP track. Even if you don't like the PvP much, this artifact will help you a lot in every single game mode. And with that being said, I will see you guys later.